there, Scary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. To that like button, shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Today we are continuing our Summer Shootaround series that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. As I'm sure you know by now, we're going through the top 10 of the top 25 and one in the order that the schools are currently ranked. We've already done number 1, Kansas, number 2, Alabama, number 3, Houston, number 4, North Carolina, number 5, UConn, and number 6, Iowa State. So now we turn our attention to number 7, and that is the Baylor Bears. They went 24-11 last season, 11-7 in the Big 12, finished tied for third in the league standings with Texas Tech, 4 games back of Houston, 2 games back of Iowa State. Got a 3 seed in the NCAA Tournament, beat Colgate in the round of 64, then lost to Clemson 72-64 in the round of 32. Bears finished 15th at KenPom, 17th at BartTorvik.com. From that team, 4 of the top 5 scorers are gone, including first-round picks Jacoby Walter and Eve Misi. But double-digit scorers Langston Love and Jaden Nunn are both back. So that's 2 dudes who averaged at least 24.8 minutes per game last season. Then Scott Drew and his staff, they got some great pieces in the transfer portal. Jeremy Roach, Norchad Omeir, and 5-star freshman VJ Edgecombe will likely be Baylor's next one-and-done first-round pick. Again, I've got the Bears ranked 7th in the top 25 and 1. We'll see what Norlander thinks about that next. But first, a word from our partners.
Football action continues.
Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances?
As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North.
It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield.
Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Okay, Norlander, Baylor as a preseason top 7 team. Do you scoff at it? Or can you celebrate it?
I can celebrate it. I can celebrate it. We can open this one with a little bit of optimism here. I've been higher on Baylor than I think consensus in 2 of the past 3 seasons going in. Baylor has been a KenPom postseason at the end of the season, top 16 team, 5 seasons running. I'm pretty confident that's going to be 6 in a row once we get to April. However this ends for the Bears, wherever it ends in the tournament. I like their talent a lot. I think that they did well for themselves in the portal. I think Omeir is it's not even sneaky good. I mean, he's a familiar player. If you're listening to a podcast on college hoops in the middle of August, we love you forever. And you're dialed into the sport. You're well aware of what Omeir did while he was at Miami after he was a big-time player and transfer out of the Sun Belt there previously. So getting him, I think, is pretty critical and pretty key. A vintage case of a transfer and a COVID bonus year that's going to pay off big time for him. Jeremy Roach getting a new lease on life and 1 bonus year in college after going through the Duke experience and now getting his chance and really a change of scenery is going to be fascinating. The roster is fascinating. I would think you got 6 guys competing for 5 starting spots here. You'll have what? VJ Edgecombe's probably going to play the 3. He can be a little bit interchangeable, but let's put him at the 3. There's no doubt about that. He's got a chance to be a top 3 freshman in the country. I actually think there's a decent scenario. He actually leads all freshmen in scoring. If you look at what Cooper Flagg can do, but the talent around him, there's a real chance that Edgecombe actually winds up scoring more. But we'll see if there's talent on this team. Langston Love play the 2. Roach plays the 1. They've got a returning guy, Josh Ojewuon, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He averaged 5 points a game last season. He would play the 5 potentially. Jaden Nunn, who we haven't talked about yet, he could potentially fit in there as well. He's the 6th guy that I think is going to be battling there for a starting spot and has a real case to do it. He's 6'4". It's kind of interchangeable. So where do they put him? Do they opt to go a little bit smaller if they don't have, say, Norchad in there? Can they ask him to play the 4? I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I think he's going to play a lot of 4.
You think so?
I mean, you start to look at their, coaches do it different ways, but you talk to most coaches, they tell you they'd like to get their best players on the court as often as possible. And if you take that approach with Baylor, you get really small really quickly.
Yeah.
And somebody who is not a traditional 4 probably got to spend some time at the 4.
Ojewuon's got to make a big jump
up
here.
He's got to make a big jump.
He's got to make a big jump, but I think if he does hit him at the 5, I mean, it's like him or Omeir, I guess. It depends on how they want to play it. If they even want to play both of them. If they don't and they really want to go small, then they're going to be they'll be certainly dangerous. I do like their potential, GP, of being a team that can again be pretty respectable on the offensive end. This is what Drew has been dialed into for a few years here. Although while he's had some good defensive teams overall on balance a number of times, it hasn't been consistent year over year. Now I remember we talked about this a year ago on the shoot around, and the big issue with Baylor was that it was noticeably not reliable on the defensive end, and they needed to make a big jump. The zone, they didn't play a ton of it, which Drew has occasionally, sometimes in the distant past. But they were better on balance last season. Still weren't to a category where I would call them above average on defense, but they were certainly better. But the bread and butter has been the offense there. Baylor ranked 6th in adjusted offensive efficiency last season at KenPom. The season before that, they were number 2. Season before that, they were 8. Season before that, they were 2. And then you go back prior to that, they were 17 and 20. The reason why I think Baylor is, again, going to be a top 15 team in the metrics once we get to 35-plus games into the season is I anticipate that the shooting will be good enough, the offense will be good enough, and this team will have a healthy chance at being, a top 15 three-point shooting team in the country.
So, for what it's worth, they are 14th at Bart Torvik in those preseason rankings. That seems disrespectful. They're plus 2,200 to win the national championship, according to DraftKings. That equates to tied for 8th in the country with Arkansas. So, listen, betting markets are betting markets. They are not to be confused with rankings. Mm-hmm. Those betting markets can be motivated by things outside of who do you think's the best team. But Baylor is in the top 10 range everywhere. I don't think you could find them outside of the top 15 in any sort of thing that's ranking basketball teams on paper heading into next season. So they should be really good again. If I have a concern, it is that they can get very small. I don't know that people realize this because Norchad Omeir is this double machine who started for a Final Four. He's 6'7". Yeah,
he's 6'7". Although standing next to him in person,
he looks big. He looks
big, but so he's 6'7". I think without shoes. In shoes, I think he might be encroaching on 6'8". I don't. Either way,
yeah.
To your point here, and take it away. I will say this: he is so big of a presence. Even if he plays 6'10", but he's not 6'10".
Right.
Maybe that's worth a gamble, depending on the team, depending on the matchups, depending on the game. It will be fascinating to see if they try and turn on the Jets with 4 wings, essentially, and then just have Omeir, who should have the conditioning to handle it. But we'll see if Drew opts to truly lean into that more often than not.
Because if you go with a starting lineup of, let's just say, and I'm just like I said with UConn, I'm happy to let Dan Hurley decide who starts and plays. I'm happy to let Scott Drew decide who starts and plays. I feel like if you're running a program at that level and you've won a national championship, you don't need us giving you advice on who to play. But I think a reasonable possible starting lineup would be Roach, Nunn, Love, Edgecombe, Omeir. And if you do that, suddenly you've only got one player taller than 6'5" on the court, and that player is 6'7". You got nobody taller than 6'7". You get small. That's an area of concern. What I like, suddenly in that same starting lineup, you've got Jeremy Roach, Jaden Nunn, Langston Love, 3 experienced guards.
Super experienced, yes.
Who all last season shot above 42% from 3 on at least 3.1 attempts per game. So they've got reliable shooting. There's nobody out there shooting 45% on 8 attempts. All right. That doesn't exist, but they've got reliable shooting at least 3 positions. And then Omeir, he'll take a few, and he did shoot above 35% from 3 last season. Edgecombe's more of an athlete than a shooter, but I like the shooting and I like the experience. I mean, you got in Nunn and Love, 2 guys that averaged double-digit points for a team that finished top 15 at KenPom last season. And then you add Jeremy Roach, a guy who started 108 games for Duke, started for a Final Four team, and Norchad Omeir, who, started for a Final Four team. And then the 5-star freshman who, can maybe be a top 5. This is one of those that you'll notice from years past. I do this every once in a while. We start really prepping for these episodes, and I go, oh man, I like this team. I think better than where I have them ranked. I think I like Baylor. I think if I were totally starting from scratch and re-ranking teams, I would have Baylor a little higher than where I have them. Although I think where I have them is fair. My concern would be they can get really small, but that experience, that shooting with that 5-star freshman, that's a really nice roster. In fact, how about this? The 3-on-3 Olympic thing that was just a disaster. We got to figure that out as a country. We can't.
Yeah.
God bless Jimmer.
God bless you. I wound up writing. I've been off college hoops writing duty for a good 2.5 weeks writing on the Olympics. I had to write about that. That was 2-5 and a disaster. We won't get into the weeds of why that happened, but God bless Jimmer. Man, he's 35 and he did get hurt, but when we watched him play, it's like, we can't be doing this.
Jimmer is a college basketball icon. He'll have a special place in our hearts forever.
I think he averaged like 29 a game playing a few years in China. Like he had big time success.
Yeah, but it's over. We don't need to send Jimmer to like, imagine if we sent the equivalent to Jimmer to do flips for us.
I know.
Instead of Simone Biles. We would think that that's insane. There's like literally, think about this, 1,000 basketball players we could send to create a 3-on-3 team.
Yes.
That would be better than the 3-on-3 team that we sent. But we gotta be better about that. Here's my point though. We did what do we call those things? Dribble handoff. We did a dribble handoff a few weeks ago, where it's just like, we ask a question, then we all answer it, and it's content, baby. We had to make 3-on-3 teams out of college basketball teams. And I went with Roach, Edgecombe, and Omeir. I think that's the best 3-man team you could create from a college basketball team next season. Jeremy Roach, VJ Edgecombe, and Norchad Omeir.
All right, let's make note of that. That's the best 3-man combo we'll see in college hoops next season.
I'm being very specific.
Yes.
If I had to build if we had a 3-on-3 tournament among college basketball teams, those are and you had to pick your team from one college basketball team.
From one team.
That 3-player team.
There's a chance, yeah.
Baylor.
Potentially. I like 3 lengthy wings, switchable, Omeir in space. Regardless, it's definitely intriguing. By the way, real quick, I'm in on 3-on-3 as an Olympic sport. There's a lot of people like get this thing out of the Olympics. I actually before we had the melodrama against Serbia in the semis, and then you had Curry somehow, some way putting up the kind of performance that I'm telling you, it's going to be like a top 5 thing connected to his career, which was unthinkable heading into the Olympics.
4 threes in a minute. In 4 threes at 133 seconds.
Correct. And as I wrote in my Olympics recap finale column on Monday, the final 3 he hit, I do think is his Mona Lisa. It really is it encapsulates so much of what makes him great, the best shooter ever, his appeal, all of it.
Because he's got KD and LeBron part because he's got KD and LeBron standing there wide open. I think it winds up aging amazingly in that I don't think any of those players ever win another NBA championship, and so their final championship will be together playing for the United States in the twilight of their careers. I think it's a fascinating thing that we'll look back on, and this thing will age incredibly, and probably this team will be right there alongside in terms of the dream team and what we remember from that. This team obviously had a tougher run. The point I'm making is this: prior to all of that, in the semifinals and the finals, even that they had the South Sudan issues before they even got to the Olympics. I like 3-on-3 because it was a different lane, a different rhythm to seeing Team USA largely go out and be able to be the favorites. And there's a certain lack of drama. I'm fully on board with people who say that that those days might be gone for good. But I like it being different. My question is, are you in on 3-on-3 as an Olympic sport, or would you prefer it go the way of what we think breaking is going to do? I'm for it as long as we take it seriously. Like, we can't send Jimmer or people comparable to Jimmer. Like, let's take it. And by seriously, this is what I mean. We have a USA basketball camp, training camp like we always do. We pick our team, and then from the leftovers, we pick our 3-on-3 team. I know that there's FIBA qualifying.
Correct. You got to basically be willing to go and live in China for 2 weeks. You got to have players on the roster that do that. So there's going to be and like, if you're in the NBA, like, you're not going to do that. Like, you're just.
I know. Here's what I would say. Yeah. Then we need to change that. We're
not going to change it because it's FIBA's rules. Like, we can't.
We change other countries' governments.
Dude, 95% of the reason that 3-on-3 exists as an Olympic sport was because FIBA was sick of the U.S. winning gold and 5-on-5 every single time. So they wanted to create something that intentionally would not not give an advantage to the Americans. So
Then
we have to
should
overcome.
bomb them then.
Yeah,
Invade
okay,
them
here
and
we
bomb
go.
them, and we'll start it ourselves.
Always the
Listen,
diplomat, aren't you?
this is America. You're not going to tell us what to do. All right. Nobody's telling us what to do when it comes to basketball. Our Dr. Naismith invented this. Your Dr. Naismith didn't invent this.
Okay, Dr. Naismith was born in Canada.
Damn it. Damn.
You're really, I mean, you are quite the exhibit of American exceptionalism right now. You're trying to take credit for Naismith. We claim 2-year-old Tony Hinkle.
Yes.
Naismith invented it in this country.
Yes, that's what I meant. Though.
A Canadian, though. We
Well,
can't
that's a little
claim
bit
Dr.
like-
Naismith.
That's a little bit like it doesn't matter where you were born. If you have a baby in the United States, that baby is American.
That's correct. I have a friend who recently just gave birth. She's in New Zealand, so her baby is a Kiwi. Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Yes,
See,
indeed.
well, our baby, basketball is our baby, and that's an American baby. It was born in the great state of Kansas, I believe. Tell me that's true, at least.
He invented it in Massachusetts at a YMCA.
Why did he do that?
Brutal. You're brutal right now.
Well, then why did they put his name on in Kansas? That seems stupid to me.
Naismith, by the way, the worst coach in the history of Kansas
Awful.
basketball.
That's the other thing. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. He liked to. I ain't taking shots, but
on this note, our candidate coaches has published. The first one ran on Monday. Kansas is your preseason pick for the unofficial coaches poll. By the way, the USA Today one won't come out for another 2 months and change. Baylor received, I believe, 1 vote. I can't tell you the coach that did it. I don't allow coaches to vote for their own teams intentionally with this, so no, it was not anyone on the Baylor staff that voted him, but Baylor to get exactly 1 vote here.
So you're telling me Dr. James Naismith is from the same place as Drake?
Correct.
What do you think about that? Have you thought about that?
I got no thoughts on that.
Wow.
I got none.
Well, I know what you're thinking.
You don't. I could not emphasize enough how much I have not thought about Drake and Naismith coming from the same country.
I've been thinking about it a lot.
All right. Let's get to the schedule here. Baylor does not have its non-conference schedule finished as of tape time, and it won't be finished for like weeks here apparently. But nevertheless, that's not going to slow us down here. What we're looking at is they are in an MTE. They'll probably the Bahamar, right? They're going to play St. John's first, and then they get either Tennessee or Virginia. So it could be Virginia, not likely to be a preseason top 25 team. Tennessee will. St. John's, we wait and see, but they've got a good opportunity, a couple there. Before that, though, don't think this has been announced yet, but they're going to play Gonzaga, barring something falling through, which won't happen. Few and Scott Drew are very, very tight. They're going to play Gonzaga in the first week of the season. Sounds like that game's location is to be determined. If you
put it in the Pentagon. Put it in the Pentagon.
I think Sin City is going to be the spot for Gonzaga Baylor in the first week of the season. Date to be determined. And then they also they've got the UConn Huskies in a neutral site affair. Or no, is that no, that is at UConn. My mistake there. They're playing at UConn. That's the Big 12 Big East situation there. Remember last year, UConn went to Kansas. For whatever reason, Kansas is not going to return to play at UConn. So we get UConn hosting Baylor, and that's a biggie. Those are 4. I think a 5th high major game is trying to be done in the works here. We'll see if they can get that done, but I think that's the biggest holdup there. And then it's going to be a bunch of bye games. So we have 4, maybe 5 high majors. You've got UConn, top 10 team. Tennessee, top 15 team. St. John's, top 25 team in the eyes of GP. Gonzaga, top 10 to 15 level team. That's a lot. Now, in league play, 20-game Big 12 schedule. They're home and home with Arizona, Cincinnati, maybe a tournament team. TCU, expected to take a step back. Utah, probably not a tournament team. And then Houston, home and home. That's obviously a biggie. Road only on the road against Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State and Waco, Texas Tech, home only against Kansas State. So a couple of good teams there, but they only have to host Oklahoma State, UCF, West Virginia. I think that's about the extent of it there. I have my over-under number. I want you to guess. I want you to see if you can guess the number before I give it to you. For the Baylor Bears with this schedule, 4 high majors for sure, maybe a 5th. That's to be determined.
That's a wild non-league schedule to be having to do it right before the Big 12.
I mean, they'll have like 5, potentially 6 bye games in there as well. So it'll be spread out. But yeah, Gonzaga week 1, St. John's and Tennessee, Virginia week 2, and then UConn's a couple weeks after that. And then we'll see if they can mix in the other one.
Okay. I've got them 4th in the Big 12, even though I've got them top 7 in the country.
Yes. As a reminder, we have done 4 Big 12 teams in our first 7 episodes of the Shootaround.
Yeah, so that league's going to be outrageous again. Are you convinced it'll be the best league in the country again?
I am convinced. I need to. Someone else has got to step up and
Come on,
man. Now it's getting bigger, but all the leagues are getting bigger. Like usually, when you get bigger, your rating will tend to drop. But everyone except the Big East. So I am convinced at this point the Big 12 will be the best league again. Yes.
Keep an eye on. You know what league I'm going to say?
The SEC is my guess.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think I have more SEC teams in the top 25 and 1 than I have any other league, including the Big 12, but more Big 12 teams at the top. So I've got them 4th in the Big 12, but still top 7 in the country. I'm going to do, and I know this doesn't sound great, but like this is really what I think 4th place in the Big 12 looks like.
Well,
12 and 8.
Okay.
12 and 8.
Wow.
And
look at you.
Like 12 and 8 might be top. Let me go 11 and 7. I'm not going to be disrespectful to Baylor. Not me. Not with Terry Teagle sitting right here behind me.
11 and 7.
What
do you think? What do you think my over/under is?
Okay, I got to get to it. You know, I work backwards. I work backwards, Norlander. You know how I work. I work backwards. I cannot believe Dr. Naismith and Drake are from the same place.
I can't believe you didn't know Naismith was important in the United States.
I guess I don't pay attention so much.
I guess that's overrated.
I guess sometimes I don't really pay attention. So 7 losses in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do 3 non-league losses.
Okay.
Like at UConn, that's just tough.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe lose an event game and something. Let's 3. So 3, I did 7, 10. So I got to go 31 minus 10, 21.
21 and 10.
I'm not comfortable with that.
You can't keep. It's what you have. You
No.
got them 11 and 7 in 4th place in the Big 12, and you got them getting absolutely blown out in 3 of these non-league games. So there you are, 21 and 10.
That's tough. That's disrespectful. You
got a team 7th in the country losing 10 games heading into the season, just as a reminder. What do you think my over-under is?
I think it was probably right around there, 22, 23.
I always go 0.5, 22.5. Baylor finished the past 2 regular seasons with 22 wins heading into Big 12 conference play. Last season, they were 15th in the country. The season before that, they were 16th at the end of the season. I'm going 22.5 here. Again, this is the rare case of a summer shoot-around where we don't have all the high major games known. So we wait and see, like, if that high major game turns out to be like a really good SEC team or a quality team out of the Big 10, we'll see. Then yeah, it can have an impact on it. But if they decide to just, pick up another bye game, or my campaign to the Baylor staff and Scott Drew is go out. There's a good 7 to 10 quality mid majors. Have them come to your place. You're going to win and get another really good quad 2 win. Just get that done if you can't get a high major schedule. Regardless, we are flying a little bit blind here. I set the over under at 22.5. I am going slightly under. I will say they go 22 regular season wins for the 3rd year in a row. They go into the Big 12 tournament at 22 and 9.
Yeah, so they were 22 and 9 heading into the Big 12 tournament last season,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up, and then they went 1-1 after that. And on Selection Sunday, still got a 3 seed. So it's not crazy to think they could lose 10 games before the Big 12 tournament and still get a top 2 or 3 seed.
Yeah, I was covering the tournament in Boston. You were in studio. They're just, because of the nature of the job and how we do this, they're just always, every year, there's just a game or 2 of note or a loss of note that I just don't see, because I never saw a second of the Baylor Clemson game. So I have no concept and perspective on why it happened, how it happened. All I know is that Clemson won the game, and I don't even think I did the pod that night. But, a semi-random exit from the tournament there, but obviously a big year for Clemson. We'll see if they can dodge that. Baylor had no issues with Colgate in the NCAA tournament. And yeah, they, to me, are pacing again to being 3 seed territory. 2 more and then we can get out of here. 1, just a comment. I believe, for everyone listening that is curious about this, the one thing that drew consistent ire last season was the camera angle at Baylor's new building. Mm-hmm. I believe that is getting fixed for next season. So keep that in mind as we head toward there. So the complaints that it was, basically on the ceiling pointing down, I think they are fixing that. Keep an eye on that. And then last thing, just a question for you. Jeremy Roach.
Yes.
Is he your pick to be the best player on this team? And if so, real consideration for preseason All-American status, or is he kind of maybe, topped out is not a pejorative here. Like, he's a really, really good college player. Do we think he can actually ascend to another level? Because he was really good again last season at Duke, but I would argue he was not where I thought he would be in his final year with the Blue Devils. And I wonder if he can get to that at Baylor. I don't know. I don't have an answer here. I just wanted to tee you up on it if you thought he was going to be the MVP for the team this season.
I would bet against that, but I wouldn't rule it out. I'm not putting a ceiling on anybody, but if I were being honest, I think he is what he is. And what he is a really good college player, but probably not great. Probably not All-American, but really good.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I think Duke is less for losing him, and Baylor's better for getting him.
It's a good way of putting it. I think there's a chance there. I also think Baylor's
the best player. I would say Omeir.
Ooh, look at that. Omeir.
Just statistically.
Yeah, statistically, Edgecombe will be potentially
Edgecomb's wild card. You never know when one of these freshmen is just going to be Brandon Miller, right?
Well, correct. But last year with Baylor, there were nights when it was Ray J. Dennis. There were nights when it was Jacoby Walter. I don't know how many games Eve Misi was actually the best player, but he was a first-round pick, and they don't have a player like him on the roster this season. Bridges was also very, very good at times. I think you're probably going to get a little more of that again this season, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know if Baylor is going to be that kind of team where if they're in that top 10 conversation, probably more teams than not in the top 10 are going to have a clear-cut number one guy. I don't know if they'll have that. If they don't, doesn't mean they can't make a Final Four.
Right. I just think Omeir's been putting up double-doubles consistently for feels like decades. So I don't see any reason why he's not going to continue that. I think he will statistically be like when you start doing bullet points, leading scorer, leading rebounder, like he's got a chance to be all of that stuff. But I like it. Like Edgecombe's the wild card. Like with guys like this, sometimes they're just, Jacoby Walter last year, who was really good, but not great, but really good.
Yeah, he had moments for sure.
He had moments, but he was, and then sometimes they're, as you look up and it's like, oh wow, Brandon Miller's the best player in the country type of thing. And I don't know what Edgecombe's going to be. Yeah, and you won't. I will say I sat with Scott at Peach Jam for a minute and just picking his brain a little bit about this or that or whatever. And Edgecombe obviously comes up and he was like, he's been great. Like people like the things I hear about him are all positive. So we'll see. But I think he's ranked top 5 in his class, projected top 5 pick in the next draft. If we are talking in February and he's still thought of that way, this is I think, clear national championship contender.
Yep. I think there's a chance. We got to see it actually happen there. I do think there's a very good probability when we release our top 101 players come October that Baylor has 4 players represented. It's guaranteed to have 3 represented on the list, but there's a chance it might have 4.
They could have 5.
It might not be. You might have 5.
I mean, when you start talking about, you've got in Nunn and Love, 2 guys who averaged double figures in points for a top 15 team last season. All right.
Yes.
So that at least puts you on the radar. All right.
Radar. Yeah.
Roach has got to be in there.
Roach will
got to be in there.
Yes.
And Omeir's got to be in there.
Yeah.
So they got 3
for sure. Maybe a 4th. Yeah.
And the other 2, Nunn or Love, they could both make it. Neither one could make it. One could make it, but it's not crazy to me that we could end up with 5 Baylor players.
And to circle it, put a bow on it, we can get out of here. They'll definitely have 3. They'll have 3 top 65 players, and I don't know if there's more than 5 teams in the country that will have that, which is why GP's point, even though it's not 3-on-3, he'd take them in a hypothetical, theoretical 3-on-3 college tournament.
We just got to figure that out. Just send people. Like, can we win this with these people that we're sending? If the answer is no, then I ain't got no interest.
Drastic changes coming for LA 28. That's all I know.
Yeah. Well, we got to change the rules. Yep. It's time to change the rules.
Okay. Yeah. Benefit us. Yeah.
To benefit us.
There's that.
It's the American way.
Lucky American spirit right there. Fix the stuff for us. We deserve all of the medals.
We want to win all of the medals, and so let's fix this. Yeah. We gotta finish. We gotta figure it out.
You're working on a plan to not allow Wemby to play in the 28 Olympics too?
Yeah. We gotta ban him. Yeah. We gotta close our borders.
Serbia, they're not allowed to play anymore. Get them out of here.
I keep hearing about these borders.
Yeah.
So maybe we gotta close the border and keep Wemby out of here. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works exactly, but we got 4 years. We could think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just
sounds like you've had a major philosophical change here over the course of this podcast. It feels like your world outlook might have drastically shifted.
No. I'm still who I used to be.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Don't worry about me. I ain't trying to.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make 3-on-3 basketball great. I ain't worried about America.
That's how it starts. No,
I ain't worried about America. Broadly speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I am, but. Hey, I'm still exactly who you think I am. I would just like to not get embarrassed in 3-on-3 basketball. A North American invented that sport.
Yeah, there you go.
A North American invented that sport. We should be better at it.
That's a show.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend, Baylor legend. Huck Larnell, thank you guys once again for listening to, watching the Eye on College Basketball podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple, Spotify. More of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.